All right, karibu sana to Mtaani podcast, brought to you by Kreco. And of course, today we just here to remind you that we always give you the best. And when we talk about these podcasts, you better know that we are going to be bringing to you very, very, very great panelists. And today we are at the anti-FGM board. And together with me, I'm going to be introducing my colleague. You say your name?
Yes. Hello. So my name is Masi Wangui. I'm a programs officer at Trickle.
Ah,
Yes.
awesome. Thank you so much, Mercy. And I don't know what kind of conversation we are going to be having in terms of gender considerations, because you know this is a conversation that targets one gender.
Yeah.
Ah, just consider
Yeah.
target one gender. But anyway, I think we are headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
Now we are talking about women empowerment and the very, very many other conversations that we have. So just a quick one. Just to introduce one of us who is here with us in this station, Mr. Hashim. Karibu sana, one of the directors at the Anti-FGM board. Maybe you can introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers.
Yeah.
Thank you, Duncan, and Greco team.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Hashim Yusuf,
Mm-hmm.
Director Policy and Research at the Anti-FGM Board. Welcome to Anti-FGM Board once more.
All right.
Thank you.
So
Thank you
what
for
do you
having
do
us.
here at the anti-FGM board now as a board itself? Now that it's actually constitutional, right?
Yes.
It's a mandate given to the from the constitution. What do you do here at the board?
Thank you. The board, the government saw the need to safeguard our girls and women from GBV. FGM is the most prevalent, one of the most prevalent GBV cases in Kenya. That's practiced by various communities. So the need to eradicate FGM and communities to abandon FGM, there was a policy paper in year 2010, which gave birth to the Anti-FGM Act and the board. The act was in 2011. The board is a creature of that act.
Yeah.
And the board's mandate comes from the Gazette Notice 32, number 32 of 30 September 2011, which mandates the board again to fight to safeguard our girls and women against violation of their physical and mental integrity through female genital mutilation.
Yeah.
And when we are pursuing that mandate, we have several functions and programs that we pursue to fulfill that mandate by government. And one is to implement, coordinate, and supervise programs for public awareness so that communities can abandon FGM. We also mobilize resources for the same, those activities and programs that are intended to eradicate FGM in our communities. We also provide technical advice to all actors, both state and non-state, who are involved in the fight against this harmful cultural practice. We also advise government on emerging issues, policies that need to be implemented so that we can further the interest of the board and save our girls and women from this harmful practice.
Yes.
And the major way we do this is through public education, public awareness programs, through other stakeholders, through the board, sensitization, government actors, duty bearers, and all that. So we need to sensitize our communities on also the harmful effects of this cultural practice.
So mnaenda kule mashinani.
Yes, we go to the villages.
You see most boards and even commissions, and some of them have been established, actually constitutionally established. There are very many people who keep saying that those guys are just in Nairobi, they don't come in the community.
Ground.
Ama, what do you think, man?
Yeah, that's the
Right?
case.
So maybe what are some of the programs that you guys do down there into the grassroots so that even the impact is felt?
Thank you. We have identified 22 hotspot counties.
22.
Yes, that practice FGM. Their communities that don't practice the FGM. Less than 1%, like the Turkana. We have Kakamega, the Abagusi,
Yeah.
the Akamba.
Yeah.
So we have now focused, depending on, as a result of coming from the survey, we have now narrowed down to 22 hotspot counties. And in those counties, we have several strategies We
Yes.
work with local partners. We also work with county governments. So our policy has a place for all stakeholders at the county and the sub-county level.
Yeah.
At the county level, we have what we call county anti-FGM steering committees, which are co-chaired by the the county commissioner and the CEC for gender at that county, and the county secretary and the secretary for the steering committee is the gender officers posted by the Ministry of Gender.
So are these steering committees in only the hotspot areas, or are they in like every county?
They're in the hotspot areas, the 22
Oh, the
counties
hotspot areas.
that
All
practice
right.
FGM.
Okay.
Because if we scatter through all the other counties, then the impact will be less and the resources will be divided.
Yeah.
So we have narrowed down to those counties. Yeah, where the prevalence is higher.
Okay.
And we work through them. And then the membership is all the actors who are civil society organizations which are in the counties. We have the churches, we have the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims, all those are members. And our Mendeleo Wanawake, youth groups and all that, those are members. All our actors which are involved at the county level are members of the county anti-FGM steering committees. They do their reports, they do policies at the county level, and they sometimes help the counties to develop their action plans and advise the counties on how best they can fight
So
the menace.
that means these committees are able to also come with their own policies. But anyway, they have to be in line with your what
Of
the
course,
guidelines that you've given, but they
yeah.
can come with those that suit their specific needs.
Exactly. Us,
Okay.
the board gives general guidelines, but they are in the 22 hotspot counties. There are activities which are maybe is fruitful in one county, it's not in another county. Because the best, remember, the best way to fight this is community-led initiatives. Because enforcement of laws alone may not bear fruits, because the law can be circumvented. You know how Kenyans do that. But the best thing is engage the communities and make communities understand the harmful effect of FGM. Yes, use our elders, use our custodians of our culture, use our imams, use our churches and all that, so that they are able to identify the harmful effects of these traditional practices, which are still in our counties. So we have always said the best initiatives are initiatives that are led by communities. We also help communities sometimes identify with their support, identify alternative rites of passage for these girls. Because they are saying FGM is moving from girlhood to womanhood. And you know what that means for our girls. Their education is affected and many things, their health is affected. So community-led initiatives are always the best.
So maybe so far with these steering committees, what are some of the success stories you've had so far? How many policies have been implemented? Even in these counties, what can we say have been some of the successes of this?
Thank you. Some county governments, quite a good number of them are very supportive.
Okay.
They have developed county action plans.
Okay.
Yes, and some have even go to now county policies. So we have that level. Some counties have developed their action plans, which is now customized to that county.
Yeah.
And the county and the anti-FGM board supported them. They provide the technical guidance, and even other actors, which have been very supportive. Like in Tana River, for example, we have Plan International, which is doing a very good work, hosting our county steering committees, doing their quarterly meetings and all that, and have done quite significant progress.
Yeah.
So if you go, if you look at our documents, maybe in our store, you'll find there's an action plan for Kisi, one for Wajir, one for Garissa, like that, one for Samburu, Migori. So those action plans have been customized to those counties because of the unique challenges and the unique ways of doing the act.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So these 22 hotspots, which are the top 5 or
The top 5 is Wajir, Mandera, Garissa, Marsabit, and number 5 is Kisi. The prevalence of 77.3% in the last KDHS survey.
So now the first one, what's the prevalence for the top one?
97.
97. Wow.
So 97, I think it's important.
That's almost everyone.
I think it's also important for us to understand what 97 stands for.
Maybe I give you.
Because is it so? 97 means
97
that,
means for every woman.
For every woman
between the age of 15 and 49.
Yes.
97.
Out of every 100,
97
have
of
undergone
them have been mutilated.
Goodness.
So you can imagine that.
Yeah.
So do you have specific seasons that that we can say that this is when it's much practiced? For instance, depending on the different, what are some of the cultural practices in terms of, or cultural, I would say, days that they mark as a culture? For instance, if we go to, is it Wajir?
Yes.
We go to Wajir, what specific moment, cultural moment,
Yes.
do you guys I mean, have you guys identified that during this moment, this is when this is being practiced?
Thank you. For the counties in the Northeast,
Mm.
that is Mandera, Wajir, Garissa,
Yeah.
Tana River,
Mhm.
then the art and Marsabit.
Yeah.
They don't have specific days for marking a cultural event.
It's anytime.
Yes,
It's anytime.
yes, so
That
they
could
don't.
be very risky.
Yes, so this thing is done.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no mass cutting in those counties. There's
Mm.
no specific cultural
Yeah.
week that
Yeah.
they do this event. They do it
Throughout.
secretly.
It's upon the
It's a
parent.
continuous thing,
Yeah.
but it's more prevalent now when schools close.
Okay.
Because when schools close, people
Yeah.
move even from here to
Mhm.
Wajir to rural
Mhm.
areas.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The kids are taken to their grandmother,
Yeah.
grandfather,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and inconspicuously, these are when the cuts are
Yeah.
done.
Mm.
Especially this time, we have a very long holiday,
Mm.
and you
Yeah.
can.
Ooh.
I'm sure you know most parents will be visiting their rural homes,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
that there's high risk of
Mm.
FGM.
Unaambiwa
This
pale
one
na
is
shosh
yes,
sasa.
Ndio time ya kufika
Ndio
nyumbani.
time sasa.
yes, yes,
So maybe just take us through the percentages for those
yes,
top ones.
yes.
I think
Maybe I take
it
you
would be
through the
important
first.
for people to
We have
know.
number one Wajir with 97.2.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's cute.
Mandera 95.9. That's almost 96%.
Yeah.
We have Marsabit 83%, Garissa 82.5, Kisi 77.3,
Mhm.
then followed by Samburu and Nyamira.
I
The
think
national average is for Kenya is 15%. So
15.
you can imagine.
Quite huge.
Yes. So we have
Right.
10 counties above 50% prevalence.
10 counties
Yes,
above
prevalence.
50%.
Yeah. Yes.
And then I think if you just listen through that list, you realize besides the Kisii, which is an outlier, we can call it an outlier because
Yes.
they are the only Bantus in that.
Yes.
But then now you find it's more prevalent among the Kushites.
Yes.
So it's more of a cultural
Mm.
issue
Yes.
than,
Yes.
yeah.
And I
So,
want to say, I tell you,
Uh.
communities that practice this FGM,
yeah,
yeah, I'm sorry to say,
yeah.
most is not done for religious purpose.
It's not really.
Strongly
Oh,
done for
yeah.
cultural
Because when we
purpose.
went to the ground, that's what they
Yes.
say. There's
Yes.
nowhere in the Bible, there's nowhere in the Quran that
So
talks
Mhm.
about
Yeah.
FGM.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
largely done for
Cultural reasons.
cultural reasons. Because
Mhm.
if the one who cuts is
Yeah.
not going to the church, is he doing it for
Yeah.
religious purpose?
No, no, no,
No.
no.
If the one who's doing it is not going to the mosque, is not participating in Islam
Yeah.
events,
Yeah.
and still, and for him, this is a very serious event that should not be missed. So
Yeah.
it's not done because of religion. Of
Religion,
course, there's
yeah,
that
true.
excuse, for example, in the Northeast.
Yeah.
In our Muslim community, I say this thing is a sunnah and all that.
Mhm.
But the major reason why this is practiced
It's
is
culture.
culture.
It's-
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the reality.
Interesting. So now we're here for the Utu project, and now just as we start to dive into it, what's your definition of Utu? And maybe as you give your definition, why is why do we consider FGM a violation of Utu?
Thank you. My understanding of Uti is about human dignity,
Mm.
human rights,
Mm.
which should be observed irrespective of the person's status in society.
Yeah.
Because that's where we have been the biggest challenge.
Mm. Mm.
Poverty
True.
is one thing that actually undermines human dignity.
Yeah.
Harmful cultural practice like
Yes.
FGM,
Mhm.
defilement,
Mm.
rape,
Mm.
all this will undermine human dignity.
Yeah.
So FGM, the fight against FGM
Yeah.
is a fight for human dignity
Yeah.
and the dignity of our girls and our women.
And you see, it's very interesting, but a director, because you know when sometimes you read through the some of the reasons, the cultural reasons that they talk about when they conduct this kind of very inhumane practice. It's actually, they say that if you go through it, you're actually dignifying yourself in the
Yeah.
community. So we are talking about human
That's
dignity, and then there are people who think what we are calling indignity
Yes.
is
It's actually
dignity.
dignity.
It's actually dignity.
Yeah.
So I think it's something around a perception change or
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
So that means even as a board, even in your programs, it's more of in as much as you sensitize people, is it more of a perception change, or is it more of what kind of approach do you use? Is it an approach to simply change their thinking,
Yes.
or is it more of the scientific a scientific approach when you are now addressing the communities?
Thank you. When you say they would undergoing the cut for some of them,
Yes.
it's giving them dignity.
Yes.
But remember that dignity is localized. It's
Yeah.
just at that village level.
Yeah.
There's a place you go outside. When you go outside your county, for example, you go to Turkana or that,
Yeah.
and then you say, you tell people you are cut. Then you read, you
Yeah.
you say Look
Yeah.
at the impression. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
dignified,
Mm.
that FGM will dignify you and all that. It's just at the localized level, at
Yeah.
your village level, at your county level.
Yeah.
But dignity is a
Really.
universal, has a universal definition.
Yeah.
And
True.
we have to
True.
inform our
Approach.
we have to inform our girls and
Yeah.
our elders
Yeah.
and our religious leaders
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
of
There's
that. That is
nothing
a very narrow
dignifying.
definition of
Yeah.
dignity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you why
Yeah.
it cannot even be said it's dignified.
Yeah.
Why is it being done to young girls who cannot
Yeah.
differentiate between good and bad?
Good and bad. Yeah.
Yes.
Look at it.
Yeah.
So this thing is we are so
Mhm.
patriarchal,
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
unfortunately.
patriarchal. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
Otherwise,
true.
if this thing was good,
Mhm.
then they would have done somebody of 50 or 60 years because they know that person may refuse to acknowledge the harmful effects of, but they are targeting young girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's actually targeted 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Undergoing the cut. That's a new trend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
the definition of dignity is so
Mm.
is
They
so
need, they
narrow
need to
at the county
broaden
level.
the broader definition of dignity is
Yes,
what
dignity
counts.
at a
Yeah.
universal
Mm.
level,
Nice.
at the low level,
Yeah.
equal meaning of dignity.
Yeah.
And remember, when a child,
Mm.
somebody below 18 years cannot make a decision
Decision.
on his
Yeah.
own.
Mhm.
And those are
Institutionally.
the
Yeah.
people they target. So,
Mm.
and to protect the dignity of those people, that's the responsibility of government
Mm.
because that person is underage, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
They
So
are
you
there.
have to define the real definition of dignity to
Yeah.
those people.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, Hashim, what I struggle to understand a lot is I think there's a lot of awareness that has been created on why FGM is harmful.
Mhm.
But then now it's still very prevalent, as we've had with these percentages, yeah? And then now, when you go to the ground again, the reasons that, like, these children are literally blackmailed into it.
Yes.
If you don't do this, your parents will be arrested, or something will happen to your
Mhm.
family, or
Mhm.
you won't get married.
Yeah.
And you can get, when you tell someone from the ground they won't get married from that age, what it means for them.
Mhm.
So why is it so important for these cultures to practice FGM?
Thank you. First, there are sanctions in our
Mm.
communities
Mhm.
for not undergoing FGM,
Uh-huh.
and that's where we have the biggest.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The sanctions are not only for the girl child
Yeah.
Mhm.
who is to undergo the FGM.
FGM, yeah.
It is also for the
For the
parents and the family
family.
members.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes you
Mhm.
can be told you will not participate in a community event
Events.
because your wife is not circumcised. I mean, has not
Wow.
undergone through the cut.
Yeah.
We are not supposed to use circumcision for girls. We usually
Yeah.
say now FGM or the cut.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the implications for a father if you are told
You
your
can't
wife
attend.
has
Yeah.
not undergone FGM, you cannot participate in this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For example, you are told you cannot participate in the circumcision of your boy child because
Oh.
your wife is
Yeah.
not undergone FGM,
Yeah. Yeah.
or your daughter is not like that. So, and for the girls, they are being told you will not get married.
Yeah.
You can imagine the implication for a young girl
Yeah.
being told you will not get married, you will not have children,
Yeah.
you'll be an outcast in society.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the marriage they are talking about
Mhm.
is marriage within the community
Yeah. And
because
it's
there are
early
those that are
marriages
willing. Yeah, there are
again.
those that are willing. Other communities are willing to marry ladies that have not undergone
The cut.
Mhm.
Yeah.
FGM. So,
Yeah.
but that's why I was telling you everything is at the localized.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are a Kisi, you're
Yeah.
supposed to marry a Kisi man,
Yeah.
and the Kisi man will not marry you because you have not undergone FGM. Look at that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we need to
Mm.
look at the broader perspective and
Yeah.
make this girl child
Yeah.
a national girl child for us,
True.
not just a
A
localized girl
localized
child,
community.
a
culture. Yeah.
universal child.
Yeah.
You will go to New York tomorrow
Mm.
True.
to represent Kenya and
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
You can imagine we have localized so much, we have actually inhibited
Yeah. Yeah.
what our girls can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when these cultural practices, children undergo this, they're stigmatized. They will
Mm.
not be able to exploit their full potential.
Yeah.
You can
Mm.
imagine
True.
that she will go to a place where people have never been circumcised. I mean, have not undergone through the cut.
Mhm.
You can imagine the implications for her.
Yeah.
So, but always we think through our small communities.
Yeah.
We don't go out of our small communities.
Mhm.
It's interesting that you say that because I think the first time I watched something to do with FGM, I
Mhm.
think there's one famous movie of a model. I don't know if you've seen it.
Uh,
Was
Mm.
circumcised and
Mm.
it's a very famous one. Yeah,
Yes.
sorry, it's okay. But yeah, it was culture shock for her to go at that level to
Mm.
that level and realize she was the only one who was who
Mm.
had gone through the cut.
yes.
Yeah,
Because you see, I think it's very interesting. I actually noticed that we are also fighting tribalism through FGM and telling people that you don't have to be married in your community. You can
yeah.
explore.
But if you tell people that on the ground, it's
Yeah,
a problem.
it's a
It's
big
a problem.
problem.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think we need to talk about Kisi Masi even but before we go to
yeah,
Kisi,
yeah.
I think Bona Director talked about sanctions, and I was reading through the prohibition of FGM Act of 2011,
Mm-hmm.
and there is this section 25. Now, the reason why actually I noted that it's
Mm-hmm.
because I noticed that even the male gender is addressed here.
Yes.
Hmm.
Na nikiona mahali ambapo tunashughulikiwa, it's important
Yes. Yes.
because when people talk about FGM and they just think it's only about the women. But it says that any person who uses derogatory or abusive language that is intended to ridicule, embarrass, or otherwise harm a woman for having not undergone FGM.
Yeah.
And number 2, or a man for marrying or otherwise supporting a woman who has
Was
not
not.
undergone genital mutilation
Yeah.
commits an offense and shall be liable upon conviction an imprisonment of 6 months or 50,000 or both. Hapo kwa both ndio key. So, so
Yeah.
and the issue around sanctions. You see, now we are talking about even community cohesiveness.
Yes.
And we realize that now even the whole issue around FGM is also really getting, affecting, it's actually making the cohesion within communities, putting the cohesion within communities at stake.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, for instance, how do you do, and just in line with the question on the impact of some of your programs,
Yes.
do you have programs that address or give or provide some sort of rescue for people who have been set aside by community, people who have been sanctioned by the community because of not practicing this? Or
Right.
people who are actually even going through psychological torture? Do you give psychological support to people who have been victimized or even being sanctioned because maybe their wives have not undergone this or they have refused to take their children to
Yeah.
for this?
Yes, thank you very much. We work with other government agencies, like the national government, administration officers, our chiefs, our CCs, our CCs. We also work with children officers on the ground because we have a very pragmatic and very progressive Children's Act of 2022, which now specifically mentions issues of FGM, the girl child, mentions early marriages, mentions what we are called breast ironing. I'm sure you have heard about it, and all that. So we have rescue centers, which are manned by the children's department
Yeah.
and other non-state actors, where girls who report or any person who reports a violation related to FGM are kept. They are given skills. They are given mental health and psychosocial support. So these are there because we always work with other. We say
Okay.
the board usually works with other actors to help them, give them technical support. So we have those we have safe spaces.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
there for them.
Okay. So I think what happened is early last month we went to the ground and just usual business. We were trying to find out what issues affect Utu for people and one of the areas that we had mapped was Kisi. But then now, getting there, we realized that the hugest issue they face is FGM, which, to be honest, I think we watch the news sometimes and we see those cases, but I didn't know the prevalence was that high.
Yes.
So, and what was shocking with the findings was despite awareness, despite exposure, so FGM is not just practiced by people in the village who are not exposed. It's cases of someone coming up and saying, my sister, who is a professor, brought her kids home and they went through the cut. Or someone who works at this level of the government had their nieces or whatever going through it. So it's not just an issue of lack of people who do it, they already know the effect. Yeah. They fully understand what it means. But why do we find that of late it's like that's not the case? It's anyone, regardless of the exposure and experience and whether they're elites or not. What is happening? What's the problem?
That is the same thing I actually was addressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were saying the social norms.
Yeah.
For our people, the social norms have more implications than the effect of FGM, according to them.
Yeah.
And it becomes very difficult. And that's why the board is pursuing community-led initiatives to abandon FGM.
Yeah.
Because I said enforcement alone
Won't work. Yeah.
won't work.
Yeah.
Yes.
True.
So the best thing is to engage the communities, which we are doing. And you can remember the board from 2011, just a few years old.
Yeah.
And this is an entrenched cultural practice.
Yeah.
So we have made a progress because the survey done in 1998, the national prevalence was 38.
Oh, now it's on 15.
Yes, 203 dropped to 32. 2014, 21%. And the last survey done in 2022, we are at 15%. So some progress made. The only challenge we have some communities that are still stuck.
Yeah.
Those are, for example, the Northeastern communities,
Yeah.
the Kisi, the Samburu,
Yeah.
the Marsabit.
Yeah.
So we have communities which we have challenges because of the strong cultural norms
Because
in
I
our
actually feel
society,
like this
which are
may.
making the national average look higher.
Yeah.
But we have made progress, and
Okay.
the much progress we made is creating public awareness itself on the act that FGM is not allowed in Kenya. So that's the first important thing we must pursue,
Yeah.
so that this message reaches every corner of Kenya.
Yeah.
And it's so that, because when somebody does not even know out of ignorance
Yeah.
the harmful effects,
Yeah.
the legal implications for doing FGM
Yeah.
itself are challenges. So we have
Yeah.
taken quite some time creating awareness.
Are there cases in court for people who practiced it?
Of course, just a month ago, I think a month or 2 months ago,
Yeah.
we had an incident in Meru where 7 girls were cut
Mm.
by a quack
Yeah.
nurse,
Yeah.
and the case is active in Meru court.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you also do, as a board, you also do litigation.
We don't. We
You
do
don't?
through the government agencies, national government agencies. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You see, I was reading through the the act. I was seeing the definition of an enforcement officer,
Yes.
and one of the enforcement officer, besides the police officer
Yeah.
and
Yes.
the rest, is the community officer.
Yes.
And I was trying to see actually the importance and how community-led initiatives, of course, being
Yes.
steered and mentored by
Yes.
now the board,
Yes.
are so important
Yeah.
to this, because actually if we continue talking about the laws, the terms, the imprisonment and
Yeah.
fines,
Mm.
because you see, people say actually it's a very pedestrian statement that people say that breaking the law it's not the problem. Problem is actually being caught. So, but
Yes.
it's
That's the point. That's the point.
so, so, so when you talk about now the communities
Yes.
down there, and even the different people who you use as agents of some of these issues, because I think one of the issues that came about Mercy, and I know maybe you're going to talk about this, is the issue of people being ferried from one region to another, because
Yeah.
Yes.
they mentioned that there are specific laws, there are laws that prohibit this practice in some counties
Yeah. The county
and not
policies
in
he was
others,
talking about.
and not
Huh?
in others, right?
Yes.
Is it something that you guys are also
Oh, well.
uh, been really working to see that it's not the case?
You know, our laws are not applicable to one county and not the other.
Yeah.
But we have our national laws.
Ah.
So
True.
we have no issue with counties, because
Mm.
when somebody leaves a county that where it's prevalent, and he may be suspected of doing the act, and he moves to another county where it's not done, you have
Yeah.
not done anything much, because the act does not apply to two hotspots county. It's a national.
Yes.
It's a national act.
Yeah.
So
You
it
know.
implies everywhere.
Yeah.
Why you are going from one county to another county is that
Yeah.
in that county, people are not suspicious to pinpoint
Yes.
FGM.
Ah.
So
And now
It
that
shows
makes
the
it.
cunningness
yes,
in
it
it
just shows
Yes.
the
because
kindness of evading the law.
yeah.
Otherwise, I'm very happy to say that Kenya, so far, is the only country in East Africa where we have an FGM Act.
Yeah.
And we have an FGM, anti-FGM board.
Yeah.
So in the same act which you have been reading, it's also an offense to
Yeah.
take your child outside this country
Yeah.
Yes.
to another country to undergo an FGM. It's still
Yeah.
an offense.
Because it was
Really.
interesting that place like Tanzania was mentioned that like especially during this holiday season, a lot of kids will be moved to Tanzania where it's there's not much spotlight, or counties like Kakamega where the prevalence is really low.
Yeah.
It happens and then they heal and then they come back.
Exactly. So we have that. And we have
Yeah.
now one of the emerging issues I told you is cross-border cutting.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
other one is underage cutting. Young girls are being cut. The
Yeah.
other one is medicalization of
Yeah.
FGM.
Yeah.
So these
Yeah.
are new trends that have come up, which the body is now
Yeah.
addressing.
Maybe just because you brought it, because we were to get to that and you brought it up, maybe let's just speak on medicalized FGM. And to me, I think that is such a big blow to efforts, because one of the ways that, and one of the reasons that FGM is fought a lot is how inhumane it's, the way it's done. But then now they've brought in a way you can take your kid to the hospital and it's done medically. And so what's the implication for that to you, to the work that you do?
Thank you. That's a challenge for the board.
Yeah.
And it's something we have observed the last few years. It's unfortunate, because when you take your daughter for a cut in a hospital or a private medical facility, what you are simply doing is that you are just want her to heal faster and maybe reduce the effect of that operation.
Yeah.
But the psychological trauma
Yes.
is still persistent, because that's not cured at hospital.
Yeah.
So
True.
it's very unfortunate
Yeah.
that our partners, the medical facilities and the medical professionals, which are expected to support, because they understand the effect of the harmful effect of FGM on our girls and women practice. That's unfortunate. And I know it's not all our medical professionals.
It's not.
These are a group of, we can say, unprofessional.
Yeah.
And you know what it means for them also when they identify and brought to court.
The criminals.
They have a very, they have the anti-FGM Act plus the board which they are members. They have the Kenya Medical and Practice Board, which has serious consequence for practitioners who do that. So it's unfortunate, and we have to find a way of addressing
And
this trend.
for such people to get the confidence to do that, is it that they're protected by the community? Because why would you put your profession on the line but still go ahead and
It comes to what Duncan has said. Breaking the law is not a problem.
the problem is
the
getting
problem
caught.
is being caught. So it's a very unfortunate.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, when it is a whole community that has conspired
Yeah.
to do this thing secretly, then the chance of being reported are
Low.
low.
Yeah.
It can only be reported when there are complications related to FGM and people are taken to court for hospital. I mean, to hospital for medication.
Yeah.
So that's the unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe because there is actually something that Mercy brought in, which is also something I think I would want to know as a board, what kind of because you see when you talk about now medicalized
FGM.
FGM, I think one of the feedback that we got from the community, I think in Casey actually, is that one of the reasons why we find people, professionals
Yes.
that are doing professionals are getting actually risking their careers by practicing that medicalized FGM is because of maybe unemployment, it's because of low pay.
Yeah.
Do you sometimes also have an opportunity to sit on decision-making tables as a board and address maybe some secondary issues that have an effect on the quality of the work of the board?
Thank you. Before this issue of medicalization came up,
Yes.
we were addressing the katas themselves. Because the katas are doing it for two reasons. One, they are perpetuating the culture. And the other one is for economic gain.
Yes.
So it's always important to find alternative economic
Poverty is the
livelihoods
enemy.
for our people. And the medical, medical are not different. But I believe somebody who is in a medical facility, whether it's private or not, and that reformed that kata. For me, the kata is in a more bad economic situation than the person who is already in a facility, at least getting something. So it's unfortunate that our people do not understand the harmful effect of FGM. And I don't think there's anything, any amount of money that we can use it to exchange with this bad practice. And katas have already come forward. We are calling them our reformed katas. They are part of the movement now that are fighting FGM in our counties. Yes, we have reformed katas. We have what we call also survivors forum. People who have undergone the FGM who are speaking out to communities. We have the youth in our counties. We call them the youth anti-FGM networks in Kenya. We call them young. So there are many actors which we have helped technically and also supported them to be doing this great work at the grassroots. So there are many initiatives. We have the Survivors Forum, we have Women Rights Network, we have young youth, and then we have a very important sector, men in the fight against FGM.
Actually, I wanted to ask
Yes.
that was my next question.
Yes.
Where do we come in as men?
Yeah.
Thank you. As men, we come into this in many ways. One, our communities in Kenya are patriarchal.
True.
Yeah.
Yes. And we believe if the men say no to FGM, FGM prevalence will reduce. And sometimes also, that amount of money which is used to procure FGM is paid by men. Number two, we're also making progress. We want to make men understand that there's nothing wrong in getting getting married to a woman who has not undergone FGM. Yeah, and they can do what we call exchange programs with other communities that are not doing FGM. So men are very important, and we have a very important partner called Men and FGM as a movement, and we are very proud of the work they are doing. And we are very a key actor in the fight against FGM, and we have to always make the men part of the bandwagon to fight this menace. So we cannot be left behind. Yes, because we are policy makers, we are decision makers at the county level, we are policy makers and everything. So our leadership, men leadership, and also our men household heads and our women leadership, all of them, these are key people. And one of the ways to fight FGM is women in leadership who come out
Yeah.
to confess
Yeah.
Yeah.
to the public this thing is harmful.
Yeah.
And we have a quite a number of them, and we are very proud of them.
Mm.
Yeah.
I like what you mentioned about alternative earlier on,
Yes.
alternatives to FGM.
Yes.
So, what alternatives do you give to these communities?
First, the alternative rites of passage usually comes from the communities. And one of the things that they must be acceptable to that
Community.
community.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it is done, a whole cultural, maybe a 1 week event is done. And the girls undergo through various life skills because they were saying FGM prepares our girls for womanhood, isn't it?
Yes.
So the people undergo through several uh, rites. They are being taught many things
Yeah.
about womanhood and all that.
Yeah.
So, and that event now is concluded by making a declaration that from this, we are not doing this, and you just undergo. We have maybe a public event once in a year to move you from girlhood to womanhood
Yeah.
by doing A, B, C, D. Communities have there are ways of doing this thing,
Yeah.
and those are things we need to embrace. If we have 5 days event, cultural event, we have 5,000 or 10,000 young girls undergo an alternative rite of passage from girlhood to womanhood.
Yeah.
It is something to appreciate, and then we will have fought the harmful effect of everything. Yeah, but
And
that has to start with community dialogues, which
yes.
take time,
Yeah.
and then they are embraced.
Yeah.
And on 27th November, we have a cultural declaration, and it's about
It's about
yes in
okay.
Bungoma County, and it's a big event for us. We are looking forward to that event. Yes.
That's
And
interesting.
today also we have at the Ma Festival in Samburu,
Mm.
and our colleagues are there. Our CEO is there. Our chair is there.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they are making they will making a public awareness, and such events are very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I think talking about what you guys talk about extraterritorial jurisdiction,
Yes.
where now we are talking about people going to other countries.
Yes.
Do you have specific sort of linkages with even neighboring countries, and how do you address that?
Yes.
So that maybe perhaps the issue around reporting, because
Yes.
even the act talks about not reporting is also an offense.
Yeah.
So the issue around reporting, how do you partner with even our neighboring countries
Yes.
to ensure that this is also not dealt with only um, here,
Locally.
but also even maybe out there? In as much as you mentioned that it's only in Kenya whereby we have a
An
law
act.
an act that deals with issues around FGM.
Thank you. We have an East African Community Action Plan. Our gender ministers from East African community were there in Mombasa. And that the action plan has been developed. It has matrix for implementation. And the most important thing is to actualize. That's progress already we have made. Even the Somali government was represented now because they will join the East African community. And that's progress. We have the action plan, and it has matrix for funding, for activities, and the contribution of each member country. And that is a progress already. I'm sure if we work on, already we have an action plan, we are going to have, I'm sure, legislation in place for the East African communities. And that's progress because Kenya being at the center, Kenya, the only borders we have are those of East African community.
Yeah.
So you can imagine.
Yeah.
And to be a great thing because we are the center.
Yes.
When we have Somalia, Ethiopia, Sudan, Uganda, Tanzania, having laws related to FGM and which are already implemented and actualized. It will be a great thing for Kenya because the perpetrators will not be able to take their kids to the neighboring country. So we already have an action plan, a clustered action plan for the East African community. Yes.
Given the age at which FGM happens, which you said is now like from 8.
Yes. 5, 7,
5,
it's
7.
becoming at least now
Yeah.
at the young age.
Oh, 5.
Yes.
Okay. So what and most of these kids are in schools.
Yes.
Do you have any partnerships with institutions? Even maybe from the county level where a lot, because I feel like this is when a lot of awareness should start happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So such a time, like now we have in November, December, it's a long holiday.
Yeah.
You can imagine close to 75 days since we closed the schools
Yeah.
until the opening. Teachers are among the group we are calling beauty bearers.
Yes.
Yeah, in the Children's Act, in the Education Act,
Yeah.
teachers and our local administration, national administration officials are duty bearers. They are duty bound to protect our children from any GBV, FGM being one of them. So they are duty bearers. They're supposed to report. Unfortunately, the communities in which they are working, in the community are very secretive.
Yes.
And this thing is done over the whole day. The child
In
reports when
secret.
he's healthy during the opening.
Yeah.
And I want to appreciate our partners like Action Aid in CLO and in Kariza, who have already done sensitization for our teachers, and they are doing it for our chiefs. So that's something to applaud because this is a critical moment in the fight against FGM. Yes. And the challenges that have faced us is one, communities after the legislation of the act have abandoned the mass cutting. Now it's being done secretly at the household level. So it's a big challenge. And then some are being done in at the tender age, the way we said, and we are being told now it's being done right from birth. That's what we're hearing now. So that now it's not been noticed. So like what is the exclamation for the boy child. So it's a unique things that are coming up.
It's actually one of there's actually a lady who spoke to us,
Yes.
and actually she was saying that we should not even be calling it. We should call it as it is. It's mutilation.
Yes, that's it.
And now when
we are not calling it circumcision actually.
Yeah.
Even we are not calling it a cut. We want it to be called mutilation.
Mutilation.
Yes,
We need to be
Yeah.
calling it mutilation
Yes, yes.
because actually, I think from your statement, I now find it taking up the kind of approach that terrorism does, and we talk about terrorism. I mean, advancing and trying to it morphs into something different and into different ways
Yes,
of
to-
doing it. So maybe I would say we are talking about prevalence. When do you think, from your projections and from some of the interventions that even
Yes.
as a board that you're doing,
Yes.
when do you think, even as a country, at least we'll be talking about even 1%?
Thank you. We are, target is 2030. The national target to abandon FGM by
And it's
2030.
very close.
Fully.
And it is too close. And
Very close.
and for us, our progress towards that is a big thing for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you move from 21 to 15, you have made significant progress. So we will march towards that. And for any
So that,
emerging issues,
that's the 1%.
yeah. No,
Or
even
zero.
these are zero.
Zero.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
as we march towards that, any
Mhm.
progress that we make, even if we will not have achieved by 2030, for us, it's a big thing. And because this is a culture that was deeply entrenched in our communities. So to live it in one day, it will take a long time. And my hope, which I always stick to, is a situation where all our mothers one day will have undergone through primary, secondary, and college education.
True.
Yeah, I'm looking towards
Education
that
plays a
one day.
role.
Yeah, and especially for those who have undergone the cut, and those who have traveled to other communities, who have traveled internationally, who have had interaction with other communities. So, and I know that will happen. A time will happen when the gender parity education will have gone. So we're looking into a situation where that pastoralist lady now who is in the bush, a child will be educated. The child will go through secondary, primary, to tertiary institutions. I think we have a bright future when all our mothers, and I'm not saying men, when all our mothers are educated, and that will be a great thing. I believe that will be the greatest fight against FGM.
So basically,
Although you said people are educated and they're still doing it. Me, I'm targeting the mothers. I want to find a mother, and maybe in 2040, 2050, a mother of 40, 50 years who has not undergone the cut, who is educated, and she will tell her child to not undergo the cut. Yeah, I know we'll achieve. Maybe it's with time. Time may be an issue and resources.
Is there a link between illiteracy, poverty, and FGM?
Yes, if you look at the KDH survey, actually, I have it, a copy. You will be able to link the level of awareness, the level of education, and the level of practice. Yes, there's a whole table for every county. Yes.
But you have exceptions here and there.
Yes.
Because actually,
There's
we were
always
talking about
outliers.
people who are very
Yeah.
educated and they're still.
There are always outliers in any
But,
statistics.
but on a director, I love the passion that you're mentioning all these things because you see, the board is talking about hashtag end FGM. And by the way, even our viewers and our listeners can give us down in the comment section on some of the ways that actually they have actually been seeing whether it's being practiced in their communities and actually what specific actions do they think that could also be happening. Because again, Bona Director here is mentioning about how you've been listening to communities and how you've really engaged the communities because it's no longer mass mutilation is actually now being done very secretly. Very interesting, Matthew,
And
right?
the one thing I wanted to ask is, it seems these communities, even when we say they're illiterate, they're very innovative. Now they're even doing it at birth. There's always a new strategy every time. So now my question is, how does the board try and counter this? Because it seems it's one thing after the other. So initially it's mass, now it's secretive.
Yes.
And then now it was done in very dubious ways.
Yes.
Now it's now medicalized. And then now it's 5 to 10. Then again it's birth where you really can't tell. So how is the board trying to counter all this?
Thank you. Usually when they emerging issues,
Mm.
emerging issues that are not addressed in your policy, you have to go back to your policy and review.
Yeah.
That's what the board is now doing. Yeah, with our partners like UNICEF, we are reviewing the act and the policy. So that is a progress because that's what laws are for. Laws always address issues that come up.
Yeah, true.
Like now we have a new constitution 2010.
Yeah.
And the reason why we have that constitution is to address issues which
That were
have
not
now come up
addressed.
after our
Yeah.
previous constitution. So we'll always be reviewing our
Yeah.
strategies.
Yeah.
We're reviewing our strategic plan for any issues that come up.
Does the Ministry of Health support you in this fight?
Yes.
Because if it's being done in hospitals.
Yes. Our Ministry of Health, remember this FGM is a reproductive right issue now.
Yes.
And our hospitals have a gender desk. Yeah, GPV data desk manned by professionals of the health sector. Our police force the same thing. Every police station has a gender officer, a lady, and they are helping us in many ways. Not only in FGM, but even in other GPV related cases. So we are
I think
proactive.
especially the community has this perception where the gender desk is mostly for domestic violence. Most people don't link it to other issues like GBV. So I think there should be a lot of awareness where you know where to go. Like the GBV desk is for all these issues. And as you mentioned, FGM is the most prevalent form of GBV.
Which is not reported, unfortunately.
Which is not reported,
unfortunately. So when you even go to the police or the chiefs, they will tell you, nobody has reported. And it's true, because something has to be reported so that you can pursue a legal aspect to it.
I think it's important for us to even tell the viewers and our listeners that the law does not allow you to give excuses and say that either culture allowed you to do that, religious beliefs, consent of the victim,
Ignorance of the law.
There's no
ignorance of
consent
the
when it
law.
comes to FGM.
There is no excuse, and it's actually hashtag end FGM and FGM. Wow, Matthew. I think before we even talk about even some of the stakeholders that even the bodies actually working together with, because there are people who down there want to get into this fight, and maybe perhaps they have so much information and they don't know what are some of the entry points that maybe even as a board have provided for these people to even come through, because there are very many people who have actually, I don't know, and I would really want you to answer these, how you treat circumstances and eventualities whereby we have people who maybe perhaps pretend to be getting into this fight, but anyway, they are just there for the economic reasons. And have you encountered some of these people whom you considered as partners, but later on you realized that what they did was just actually to even put more and more hurdles in the fight against FGM?
Thank you so much. Most of our partners are doing quite well. What we usually do is at the moment, in the next few months, we are doing mapping of our stakeholders and our partners. And for some of them, it may not be deliberate. It may be how to approach the fight against FGM. And we invite all partners and all those who are passionate about the fight against FGM to approach the board for capacity building and how to implement programs. Because sometimes you may be out there, you implement the programs and you are sincerely implementing them. But you do not know maybe safeguarding issues, which will brought more other implications for the fight against FGM. We have the NGO board, and I'm sure if there are any places where we have contraventions in the fight against FGM for our partners, I know they have monitoring and evaluation teams which will be able to flag it out. But where we realize we have issues with a particular partner doing something else, we are there to guide and provide technical assistance as per our functions. And sometimes they are not doing it out of bad faith. It may be how they approach itself. But we'll continue providing guidance and technical assistance to all those who are passionate about the fight against FGM. Yes.
It's interesting that you mentioned some of the stakeholders, and I know, and I like that approach because I feel like a participatory approach is one of the ways to win the war. Yeah. So, in your view, these partnerships with the counties, let's say even the national government, different organizations. So, how can these collaborations be strengthened?
Thank
how are we getting to 0% by 2030?
thank you, thank you, thank you. The greatest thing to go to zero is creation of awareness, harmful effects of FGM through every possible legal way, using even the vernacular radio stations. Remember, some of our counties, the illiteracy level is very high.
Yeah.
They are going to communities, using our health professionals to advocate for the fight against FGM,
Yeah.
the implications, the reproductive implications for our for our girls and women,
Yeah.
and all that. Because when you do a survey, there was a survey done by UNFPA in 2018. I was reading about it,
Yeah.
where mortality rates are very high in countries where the prevalence of FGM is high.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that means there is a
Yeah.
correlation between female genital mutilation
Yeah.
and maternity and reproductive issue,
Yeah.
health issues.
Yeah.
So it's the best thing is to create that awareness, and this should be the responsibility of all
Yeah.
our partners,
Maybe.
RECO included,
Yeah.
because you have a whole umbrella organization,
Yeah.
a consortium of all that.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy you're saying that we are doing something about legal education,
Yes.
and this is where it's very important for you to educate
Yeah.
the public on implications of FGM,
Yeah.
and even because people should know,
Yes.
and you can make this awareness not only using the FGM Act, but we have the Children's Act, which is very progressive.
True.
We have the gender policy, GBV policy of 2019, and many of them.
Yeah.
So this should be addressed together. Also,
Okay.
remember, FGM leads to early pregnancy.
Yes. And
You
early
see?
marriages.
Yes, and early marriages,
Yeah.
which leads to school dropout,
Yeah.
which leads to loss of livelihoods. Look at that chain we are creating. Yeah.
Eh,
So look at it.
unajua watu huku people I think we need to build a culture kwenye watu wanaongelea haya mambo kabisa
We
kabisa
need to let
kabisa.
them.
Yeah.
This lady you are told you have undergone FGM, you are now a woman. She may do, so you can imagine, she can even contract reproductive health diseases like STIs and all that. So this is a chain. FGM now is a precursor for other vices, other evils in the society.
What are the rates of maybe even deaths that happen during FGM in these communities?
It happens. You can imagine somebody is being mutilated with no any medical help.
Yeah.
So you can buy a mother who's using the same tool to cut 10, 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
So there have been cases where people were referred to hospitals, admitted. Even there were cases that have been mentioned of death previously because of bleeding. Yeah. So these things are there. But unfortunately, our community now hides all those things. And they have their ways of addressing such issues.
Yeah.
And then the right of the girl child now is trampled upon, which is now very serious.
Okay.
And remember the stigma associated with that, the psychological trauma associated with that. Yeah, so we had it's a very unfortunate thing.
But at least I'm happy you're talking about rescue centers also, that you have that offer also even the psychological support to.
Yes.
So do you as a board have what we call funding um, for some of these community-based organizations down there that are addressing things around FGM? And how is the process even of accessing some of these funds? Because I know even some of the people who are really fighting this vice
Yes.
could also be facing challenges, and they need resources
That's true.
so that they are also not prone to attack by the community or some very some individuals within the community. Do you have space funding, and do you have a very easy way for these communities to access funding in the fight against FGM?
Thank you so much. Resource, I'm sure you're always limited.
Yeah.
But for us, we have communities that are mobilized.
Okay.
They have their associations, for
Yeah.
example, the Women Rights Network, and we're talking about Survivors Forum,
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah.
We usually always we have a program where we meet them and they raise their voices and create public awareness. But most importantly, most of our partners, our local organizations, our CBOs at the county level, we partnered with international NGOs and partners they are funded directly. What we are calling frontline actors. So they are grantors. Money is channeled to them, and they do the work of the.
So you guys now come in now
Yes,
for
us is to policy
Yeah.
and guide them.
guiding them,
And also give them the human resource required. We send people to
building
the
their
counties
capacity.
whenever they have meetings, and then that's how we work with them. But we are very delighted that we have partners who are working with grassroots communities and doing very good work. And they have been supported us also to have we have signed our work plan with them, and we are proud of them. But remember, resources are always limited.
True.
and we cannot say they are always enough.
You see, Mercy, these are the conversations that continue building the practice of dignity, human
Yeah.
dignity in society, is it?
True. True. So
Yeah.
maybe even even the public. I know you've talked about how collaborators can come in, but even the public, how can the public help in this fight? And maybe as you mentioned that, you can mention like observance days that they can participate in.
Yes.
I know you've mentioned too the festival that's currently happening and the one that will happen on the 27th.
Yes.
Maybe you could speak more on that and how even the public can join you in this fight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have international days that we
Mm.
create this awareness, mass awareness.
Yeah.
One, we did it on 11th of October. We had the IDG, the International Day of the Girl Child, which was marked in a sub-county in Kajiado,
Yes.
deep into the community. We also have the 16 days of activism approaching. Yeah, 24th to 10th of December.
Yeah.
We want people to be on the ground. We
Yeah.
want people in our radio stations, including Greco. So we have many activities aligned, and some of these activities are done by communities through the support of CBOs and the international partners and other organizations. So
Yeah.
that is and I'm very happy that the 16 days is coinciding with when schools are closed
Yeah.
and our children, our
Yeah.
girls are at home. So we need to create awareness on that. We have the zero tolerance also
Yeah.
day, which will be marked next year. This year it was marked in February.
Mhm.
We're also going to mark it next year,
In
February.
Ah,
inshallah.
Okay.
So these things are there. These days are there, and we also the board is also innovative enough. We want to be, next year we'll be separating what we call Dear Daughter campaign.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
where we want to engage
Yeah.
the public, our mothers.
Yes.
Yeah, that Dear Daughter campaign that we
Yeah.
want to save your daughter. So we'll have that next year, inshallah.
Yes.
And I'm sure everybody will be able to participate. We have to champion the right of our girls,
Yeah.
the right of our women, so that they're able to speak up and they don't feel traumatized. And you know, when people undergo this, the way you said about dignity,
Yeah.
their self-esteem will go low.
Yeah.
So you can't compete in education, you can't speak in public,
True.
and all that. So we have to eliminate that by safeguarding their human dignity through elimination of FGM and other harmful practices. Yes.
So maybe just a quick one.
Yes.
I just thought about this now that you work around issues on policy.
Yes.
Do you have you with years of experience and with since the board was actually established,
Yes.
have you as a board maybe identified specific policy gaps? Have you identified issues that maybe perhaps you're also maybe lobbying even the parliament
Yes.
for specific interventions from specific reforms? I mean, what are some of the issues that do you have specifically some of these issues that you feel that need to be addressed?
Thank you. I just want to take you back. Somebody took the anti-FGM board to court. I'm sure you're aware of that. On issues surrounding the anti-FGM Act, saying that girls and women have the right to do anything with their bodies. And a ruling was made
Yeah.
after long hearing. She lost the case,
Mm.
but the board has been told to align the law and the policies on these emerging issues.
Yeah.
So that is why we have approached our international donors, other partners for a review of the act, which is now in progress. We have already formed a committee on the review of the act,
Yeah.
and we are being supported. So there's an advice, a legal advice from the courts.
Yeah.
So we'll engage our lawyers. I mean the lawyers and the AG's office, which are always supportive.
Yeah.
The DPP's office, because that's a prosecution issue.
Yes.
And then I'm sure we already have an action plan in place for that. Yes. Yeah.
That's
Wow.
interesting because now let me ask if an adult wanted to go through FGM. So just based on that,
Yes.
the case,
Yes.
does the law stop that or what
Yeah,
happens?
the law stops any form of FGM, even at 90 years,
Even at
even at
90?
3 years old,
Mm,
1 year old,
mm,
1 day old.
yeah.
Yeah, the law is very
Yeah.
applicable.
Yeah, but
Even,
that just speaks to the amount of awareness that needs to
yes,
be
needs
done
to
for
be
people to understand the
yes,
effects. Because it's not just a want, because even a lot of this, even if you're an adult, it's based from somewhere, probably cultural influence. Yeah. And those are the things that you're trying to, fight. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, Mercy,
Yeah.
because because we've gotten to a point whereby as a society people feel like they can actually lead their own life
Yeah.
however they want. But anyway, just to remind them, even if you say that your life does not belong to you, Oh, it belongs to God and also the government.
The
If you are
government
found
as well.
trying to commit
Yes, yes,
suicide,
yes.
they're
Yeah,
going
we
to
are
deal
stopped.
with you, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
So
a discussion.
that's a discussion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, but anyway, as we continue to really wrap up this podcast, it's important for us to really remind our people, Mercy,
Yeah.
that even as we have set camp here at the Anti-FGM board, we are talking about the practice of human dignity in society.
Yes.
And as you can see, even across all their branding, they keep saying that is hashtag and FGM.
Yeah.
And we are being called, it's a clarion call for us to uh,
Sure.
pamoja tukomeshe ukeketaji,
Yeah,
right?
these are responsibility for everybody,
It's a
including Duncan
responsibility for
and Mercy.
everybody,
True.
regardless
True.
of your
True.
gender,
It's a
regardless
collective
of your,
responsibility.
yeah,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the takeaways also, before we even go to the way forward, Mercy,
Yes.
I think one of the takeaways is that when you talk about it's like the anti-FGM board is really calling us even to really suppress some of the very bad cultural practices that we've
Yeah.
had,
Yeah.
even as a society.
Yeah.
I mean, in the past, I actually thought that some of the that there are some communities that do not practice FGM, but some of them have actually learned from other communities to practice FGM,
Yeah.
right? Would
Yeah.
I be correct that
Yeah, that's
about
true.
that?
Yeah.
Nada?
Especially where they are neighboring.
Uh-huh.
It can work positively and also negatively.
Uh,
Positively in a way that
They start
these
doing it.
communities can emulate other communities who are in the
Yeah.
same county
mm-hmm.
and are not doing FGM. Sometimes intermarriages happen and it may work positively.
Yeah.
A good example is the river where the Pokomos do not practice
Mm-hmm.
FGM, but
Yeah.
we have now the Somalis, they were there,
Mm-hmm.
and the other communities that are practicing it.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because that's me. I believe that that would be a positive interaction. And when men from this community maybe marry ladies from the other community
Yeah.
that are not practicing. And one thing we are planning this year is a cultural exchange between two communities. By the way, it's we are bringing elders from another community to the elders of another community to have a dialogue on cultural
Okay.
implications. Yes,
Yeah.
it's among the ways we are using to
Yes,
fight the
yes.
creating awareness about cultures. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Interesting.
So maybe even as we come to a conclusion,
Yeah.
what is the way forward? You mentioned 2030 and we are all chills, eh?
Yeah.
When you mentioned 2030, what's the
Yes,
way
Yeah.
forward?
the
Yeah.
way forward is to accelerate
Uh-huh.
the fight against FGM.
Mm-hmm.
We encourage our communities to abandon this harmful practice so that our daughters, our girls, and our women can exploit their potential fully.
Mm-hmm.
And this engagement of fighting FGM is a national responsibility for every individual, and we have to create awareness for everybody. Remember when we had security issues in our country, the issues of terrorists and all that. The government was innovative enough. They brought what we call nyumba kumi.
Yeah, you back
Yes.
Every 10
Initiative.
households
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
household, have a head, and they are aware who's coming in,
Yeah.
somebody who's not known,
Yeah.
foreigner, the accessibility activities of all that. I think we have to go to that direction because FGM is
Yeah.
undermining the exploitation, the full exploitation of our ladies and the potential of our girls and women. So, and it is the responsibility of all individuals, whether you are duty bearers,
Yes.
or people in our communities, people in our marketplace, people in decision making. So everybody. So
Yes.
this let's be a responsibility to protect the rights of our girls and women. It should be a national responsibility for all of us, and not only those agencies that have been legally given that responsibility to do. So let this be a national movement for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let this be a cross-cutting issue for us. Wherever we have meetings,
Yeah.
let's raise the issues of FGM so that we create more awareness, even where it's not related to FGM. Yeah, so that any symposium we go, we can take for 5 minutes, 10 minutes to the creation of awareness of the harmful effects of FGM.
And I think
Yeah,
that
make it a cross-cutting issue. Remember when we had the HIV/AIDS
actually
Yeah.
that's what I
pandemic in
wanted
the
I was about
1990s?
to.
In the 1990s, it was
Yeah.
quite a cross-cutting issue.
Yeah.
In fact, even teachers who are going to class to teach mathematics,
Yeah.
they are being told we must create awareness.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So we have taken that direction. And the
Ah.
best way to fight this is creating
Awareness.
awareness,
Yes.
Yes.
creating more awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and looking for initiatives that are led by our communities. We
Community
engage them.
led. Yes.
And I know one day they will really understand what they are doing to our girls and our women. And I'm looking forward to a future free from FGM for our government
Yeah.
and our Kenyans,
Wow.
all of them.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's a good
Good.
parting shot, right,
Yeah,
Mercy? There.
yeah. And I like the emphasis on awareness creation through
Yes.
community initiatives. Yeah, yeah.
So that's it. I think we've come to the conclusion of our today's podcast. Mercy, what would you say? You know, you're the only girl child here.
Yes.
Tell them.
I think the
Najua huko they
one
tell
of
us.
the
What
one
would
of
In
you
fact, they should
tell?
hear your voice. Very important.
I think the light bulb moment for me was actually just realizing it doesn't end at FGM. It's how it affects, goes to early marriages.
Mm-hmm.
It worsens poverty, and it's a whole effect.
Cycle,
Yeah,
yes.
Too bad.
yeah. So I think I'd just like to echo what he said. It's a clarion call for all of us to take
Yes.
part. It's not one person's job. It's not the board's job alone. It's everyone's job. And I like the innovativeness, especially bringing men on board. And you see, if you look at those areas,
Yes.
areas that are they're very patriarchal, and it's a whole country, yes. But if you look with
There are specific areas that
yeah,
have
with
it so much.
development, there are some cultures that are. But if you look at Northeastern, they're very cultural, and so bringing men on board is such a good strategy. Yeah. So just to urge people to end FGM and take part, we will still put details on the dates that you've mentioned so that everyone is also aware and how they can come in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, nice one. And I think unajua, I want to address anyway as my parting shot. I want to address the people who talk about I know my rights. Hao ndio watu nataka kuongea na wao
Yeah,
kidogo.
Yeah.
yeah.
Just to remind them of what the act says about reporting that a person commits an offense if the person being aware that an offense of FGM has been or is being in the process of being
Yeah.
or intends to be
Yeah.
or committed or
Yeah.
fails to report according to a law accordingly to a law
Yes.
enforcement officer. Kwa hivyo ati wanasema ati hata unajua vizuri una
Yes.
intention ama imetendeka
Yes.
ama iko karibu kutendeka
Kutendeka,
Yes.
na
yeah.
haureport,
Yeah.
then
You've
you'll
broken
be
the
in
law.
for
You're
it.
done.
So
Yeah.
and
Penalties for that.
Yeah,
Very
there are
responsible.
penalties for
Yeah.
that. And just to say that we are saying that it's a practice of human dignity in society. Let's
Yeah.
advocate for that. And from Bona Directors, very rich engagement. It's that let us all know that we need concerted efforts. So
Yes.
for us to end FGM and globally to be able to uphold the practice of human dignity in society. Ama namna gani?
Namna hiyo.
Thank you so much. So
There's something to add on.
Yes, yes,
I want to tell our viewers and our
yes.
communities that
Mm,
any form
mhm,
of cut,
mhm,
a break,
mhm,
or any
mhm.
operation,
Yeah.
however small,
Yeah.
that is being done
Yeah.
Yeah.
on the genitalia of our ladies
Yes.
is a form of FGM.
Yes.
Yeah, because there are communities who say we break, we
Yeah.
don't cut, we
Mhm.
beg it to bleed, we
Which
do
was
this,
brought up
but they
actually.
don't recognize that
Ah,
as all as FGM. Any
Yeah.
form,
Yeah.
any form.
Kenyans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's the
So
innovativeness we were
yeah,
saying.
so
Like,
Eh?
we have to know that any form of,
yeah.
except for a medical procedure which has been prescribed by a medical doctor,
Yes.
Yeah.
any other thing that we do,
Yes.
Yeah. It's a
relating to
rite
a
of
cut
passage. Yeah.
Mhm.
or breaking to bleed
Yeah.
Mhm.
or removing a small part,
Yeah.
all that is
FGM.
FGM.
Yeah.
And the act does not
Yes.
discriminate. Once you have
Yes.
done that,
Yes.
then you have done FGM.
Ah,
Yes.
nice.
Thank you.
Nice. There you have it.
Yeah.
There you have it. And of course, you can engage the board on AFGM board on X. On Facebook is anti-female.
Genital mutilation board.
And then on YouTube.
Anti-FGM board.
And of course, now there's Greco.
Yes.
At Greco
Greco
Kenya on
across all
X, at Greco
platforms.
Kenya
Yeah.
on Instagram, at Greco Kenya on TikTok,
Yeah.
at Greco KE on YouTube, and also Constitution and Reform Education Consortium on LinkedIn. Where else? You can also find us on
TikTok.
TikTok
Yeah.
at Greco Kenya and on Facebook at Greco-Kenya.
Yeah.
And I think that we can call it a wrap. And thank you so much, Bona Director, for coming to our podcast today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're doing a
Yes,
good
yes.
job.
Yes, thank you.
Ama namna gani,
Yes.
Mercy?
Yeah. Thank you so
Kabisa, kabisa.
much.
So that's
Yeah.
a wrap for us. And we say, let us uphold the practice of dignity, of human dignity in society. Utu.
Utu
Thank you
Mtaani.
so much. Kwaheri.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.